There are thousands of reasons you will not live a full lifespan. Humans want to believe their spirit lives on after they have carelessly killed their body. If so, in theory, does every living thing, because everything is created by the same, is everything is created by Yahawah and must obey nature, well, must obey Yahawah far better than, okay, so this last paragraph is kind of garbage. That's correct that the spirits continue to, the spirits aren't destroyed, although the Edomites are an exception. That's spoken of in the book of Obadiah. Most living things love as much or as far, okay, this is garbage. Yeah, and more garbage from this person. So you kind of have to pick out the bones, but I do think there was some relevant content in there. This is another post by them as well that I want to quickly read through. It's entitled Parasite. I personally believe worms, and by worm I mean every parasite that is longer than it is wide, absolutely fills the entire human body, and no author to date has ever even come close to explaining how bad it really is. I agree with that. We don't even realize, as the elect, how much we are infested with this. I think I read an estimate somewhere that said like we're carrying around 30 pounds of these parasites, and not just like in your gut, but just as the composition of not necessarily the composition, but inside of our organs, inside of all of our cells. It's just this massive amount. And it makes, again, from my experience, this actually makes sense. I believe every drop of fluid in your entire body is swimming with worms galore, and where blood does not freely flow, these worms flourish. Sure, ultimately it's sin, but you sin and you allow them to thrive. Literally, the fluid that keeps your eyes moist is teeming with swimming worms, because no such blood fluids are home, and not only home, but in my opinion, the cafeteria for all worms to feast. The lymph glands might as well be called a human hotel. Right, I alluded to this before when I talked about having eye floaters, or a symptom called snow blindness. It's those worms that have reached an infestation level that's now become apparent to you. People in general think of the large worms when they do think about worms, but it is the small ones that basically call you home. Totally. Dr. Clark basically just exposed a little of the medical education of worms to the general public, and medical came up way short, as did Clark. I believe Royal Rife learned one simple fact. All humans are as worms of bacteria and viruses are basically loaded with parasites. This is a little difficult to understand. That are so tiny, no matter how you kill them with electricity, smaller ones appear within minutes to eat the dead waste, even down to very tiny % of an inch and beyond. And he destroyed his brain using frequencies, as did Clark and everyone else that got into zappers, in my opinion. Truly doing nothing but frying their brains, because they never understood the human body, not even close. All they knew was how to kill, which killed themselves in an unnatural manner. So what this person is saying here is that the body is loaded with these, and it's the microscopic ones that a lot of times we don't think about, but can form the bulk of the parasitic material in our bodies. And they're much harder for us to perceive as people, because it's such a subtle effect that happens over time, and we can't actually see them or even feel them in some instances. I will say that I have used zappers before. There is a Hulda Clark zapper. You can find it on eBay. There's one I got, I think, for $30. It's like 2 copper rods. There's another one that I got. I think it's called the Terminator zapper. It was like $30. It comes in a purple case, and it zaps in a different way. I actually think that one has been better to use, in my opinion, which I think I may just touch on that on another time, just for the sake of brevity. But I would definitely avoid using these on your brain or running or passing electrical current through your brain. I just don't think that's a good idea in general. I have some familiarity with that topic, and I may touch on that at a different point, but I would avoid doing that. Keep it to places like your hands and your wrists and your ankles. When it comes to worms, parasites, electricity, drugs, poisons will do nothing more but more damage. So sometimes this person is spot on. Sometimes they spew garbage. Again, you have to pick out the bones. The human body must produce blood that kills these worms, and this is done by proper diet and the use of herbs. And I do not believe a single commercial source on this planet understands herbs and worms. And 99% sell crap based on some book, and they know nothing about the herbal products other than they make and sell them to people willing to pay a lot of money. That is as far as it goes with them all, just business. So I think there's a lot of truth here, in so much that people that are selling you stuff, especially if it's expensive, you don't need to break your budget or bank to heal yourself. All of this healing can be accomplished through simply just prayer and fasting. Herbs do help in many cases and can help you manage the detox and restore your body. Nutrition is very important, but prayer and fasting really, as the scriptures say, really does it all, and you can supplement with herbs. But people that are selling you expensive things, a lot of times this is Edomites selling these things, and they will often tell you partial truths. So they might sell you something that actually is very beneficial, but they'll charge you way more for it than you should, or it will be than they should, or it's something that's like very simple to make. Like they might sell a certain special type of zapper, but really that's something that it might cost a few dollars or pennies to make, and they'll try to sell it to you for hundreds of dollars, or if not thousands of dollars, I've seen in certain things. But I can come back to that later. I don't think anyone gets it. Okay. This person says, medical knows the human body is a walking pus bag feeding worms, and they love it. It is good for their business, and they never ever will ever understand how the human body works, as they have their heads up their bank accounts that pharmaceutical medical colleges train them to keep their eye on money and nothing else, because if a doctor discovered a cure, he would become the enemy to every medical college on this planet. I mean, the healthcare system, in this country, again, as the scriptures say, physicians of no value. It's driven by profit, and what's most profitable is chronically sick individuals. Even just the business practices of hospitals are terrible. I think the president now is signing or working on a bill that will force hospitals to publish their prices of treatment. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I was reading that thinking, hospitals, of course I know they don't, but like hospitals don't tell you what they're charging for medical care. That's ridiculous. You don't know what you have to pay until after you go see them. People should know what they're paying for and how much it's going to cost, and if there's better deals, so that you don't have ridiculous informational asymmetry, which leads to people getting screwed over price-wise. Continuing on, I have read plenty of old herbal books and medical books, and I 100% believe they just don't get it. They just don't get the total picture, other than a few long past medical doctors that knew, but had no way to cure it, but they knew the problem well. Take a few commercial-made herbal formulas, half-ass will do nothing past the placebo effect, but you lose faith, your symptoms come back. This is interesting because it references faith. The placebo effect, of course, that's that's very real. It's very powerful. A better way to say it is alkaline thought. So if you have a positive outlook and you believe you're being healed, just that thought alone is healing yourself. They call it the placebo effect to downplay its influence, but again, I posit to you that as the elect, when we're healing ourselves, the most important thing is going to be our faith and our positive thoughts. There have been a few medical doctors that concluded all medical drugs have never ever worked beyond the placebo effect, and what I call book. This person's English is terrible. What I call book I authored that was the top surgeon MD in North America, concluded the same fact long before any of us was even born. Yet today we have these idiotic old people that will seek drugs from Europe in plain brown box, make runs to Canada, or most stupid of all, fly to Mexico, all because they've been led around like mindless sheep, goats in this case. Socialistic governed mindless sheep, goats. Same as every country that has the so-called free drugs operations to all their slaves. Edomite countries. If they had any brain activity left, they would avoid every government hand out like it was the Black Plague. Yeah, steer clear. I'm not going to say, I don't agree that these drugs are just placebo effect. Again, I had alluded to previously, they're derived from plants and concentrated, but the placebo effect definitely will play a big role, as well as in the health of the individual. I'll say alkaline thoughts, but also it's going to have the effect that I mentioned before, in that if you go to a physician of no value, the Edomites, you're going to end up worse off. Even if you don't perceive it right away, you will end up worse off after taking their medicines. Fact, worms have always been a human problem. The use of drugs in modern day pollution has made all humans more toxic, which feeds the worms more, yes. So what was written 50 years ago about worms killing humans, the subject today should be 100 times more, yet commercial has zero answer and wants all to simply do chemo, kill it, fry it until the brain is brainless, and you're laying in an old folks home as a human vegetable, and your car provider's abusing you in your lifeless body daily, and your house wealth and all is absorbed until you might as well have never existed on earth. And the moment you're out of money and the government has no more money, you're headed for the big cookie sheet with a color toe back. Okay, so dead, basically. Dust to dust, so they say. Or who knows, some wealthy person may eat some of your brain organs and other select organs depending on how you check out. If it's infested with parasites, they're not going to eat it. I think that's probably why they like the Edomite elite, like children, allegedly, because they're not going to be full of parasites. But, here's the thing about all this. Yeah, it's a money-making scheme, and yeah, these things that they do, A, kill you, and B, you're also very expensive and lucrative. But it's so much more. That the thing about the parasites is not just on a physical level. It's because of how they impact us spiritually, and they essentially control people and facilitate them being wicked. And at the same time, if we're talking about Israelites, it keeps us from returning to the Most High. So yes, it's about money, but really it's more about preventing us as Israelites from returning to the Most High.